Next is chapter 15, short-term scheduling. In this chapter, we're going to discuss the importance of short-term scheduling and what are the important issues related to short-term scheduling. And then we will look at process-focused facilities and what are the scheduling problems that we face and how we solve those problems in process-focused facilities. And some of the concepts that we'll be discussing in this regard are loading of jobs into machines, scheduling of jobs from start to finish for the jobs, then concepts like finite capacity scheduling, and what are the special issues involved in scheduling for services. The objective of scheduling is to allocate and prioritize demand. In other words, demand translated into production orders. The production orders are supposed to satisfy demands. So you allocate and prioritize the production orders to the available capacities, to available facilities, machines and work centers and things of that nature. Now, importance of short-term scheduling. Why is it important that we need to spend managerial time and effort on short-term scheduling? And the reason for that is, if done well, we will be able to use the facilities in the most efficient way, which will lead to higher productivity and lower cost, and you will be able to meet customer delivery promises as promised. So both will give us the competitive advantage by reducing the cost, improving productivity, and satisfying our customer needs. A well-managed scheduling operation will move all your production orders through the facility, keep flowing fast and in a controlled fashion, so the capacities are utilized better and the inventories are kept low and customer deliveries are made as promised. So this is the reason why short-term scheduling is an important part of operations managers' duties. Now, what are the issues that we will deal with in scheduling? So scheduling deals with timing of operations. If you take a production order and if that production order has like 5 or 6 different process steps, we need to schedule each of the process steps. When should the first process step begin? When it ends? And then when does it move to the next process location or machinery where the next process will take place? And so on until the end of production. So scheduling deals with timing of operations, and along the way we have to allocate and prioritize these orders, because we are at any given point in time in a shop floor, you're going to be dealing with hundreds or if not thousands of different orders at various stages of production. So in a given work center, there may be several production orders waiting to be processed. So we have to allocate this machine waiting production orders, okay, and we have to prioritize the production orders based on various factors. Now, one of the significant factors that we deal with in scheduling is we do what are called forward and backward scheduling. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. And then finite and infinite loading. Finite and infinite loading refers to, finite loading is when you load a machine up to its capacity. So in other words, during the process of loading jobs to work centers, you take the capacity of the work center into account. Whereas in infinite loading, you load the jobs as and when they come without paying attention to capacity. That may not seem to be a good idea, but there is a reason for it, and we'll talk about that in a later slide. And then we have criteria for sequencing the jobs. In a given workstation, there may be several jobs waiting to be processed. Now, how do you sequence those jobs? Which job should go first? Which one should go second? And what are the different criteria that we can use to sequence the jobs waiting to be processed? So in this slide, we take a look at where the scheduling, short-term scheduling, fits into the process of planning from top to bottom. So at the highest level, we have the capacity planning, which is really long term. And then we have the aggregate planning. Aggregate planning is the medium term. We talked about aggregate planning in chapter 13. And then we have master production schedule and MRP. That was the last chapter that we did, chapter 14. And the planned order releases coming out of MRP are the ones that are translated as production orders in the shop floor, and that is your short-term scheduling. So this is where the short-term scheduling fits into the narrative of planning for production. Now, forward and backward scheduling, this is somewhat similar to the project management forward pass and backward pass that we did. So here you as jobs come in, you start scheduling the different processes for that production order from the current time all the way till the last process is completed. So it produces feasible schedules, and sometimes you may not be able to meet the due date, and or not. You may be able to meet the due date, or you may not be able to meet the due date. Now, when we do this, especially when the jobs get completed before the due date, it tends to increase the work in process inventory, because you're completing jobs before they are needed. So it increases the inventory in-house. Now backward scheduling, on the other hand, when a job comes in, you start from the due date of the job and then work backwards and see when each of the operations must begin in order to meet the due date. When we do this, the inventories tend to be smaller, but when we do this, the resources that we need to accomplish the schedule may not be, we may not have enough sufficient resources to accomplish all the tasks that are involved. Now, should we do forward scheduling or should we do backward scheduling? Well, the idea is to do both forward scheduling and backward scheduling, and then try to come up with a trade-off between the two based on customer due dates, capacity availabilities, and so on. Now, finite and infinite loading is to assign jobs to workstations. In finite loading, you assign jobs up to the capacity of the workstation. So in this way, all work will get done because we have enough capacity. But the due dates may have to be pushed out a little bit because you don't have enough capacity. Now in infinite capacity, capacity does not matter. You load according to the due date and don't worry about capacity. So when there is a problem with capacity, then you have to deal with those problem situations through overtime or subcontracting or maybe order splitting, and there are some mitigating concepts that we looked at in chapter 14 MRP, mitigating tactics for capacity problems, and you apply one of those tactics.